All right, welcome back to Morning Joe, 42 past the hour. Joining us now, ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, member of the Armed Services Committee, Democratic Senator Gary Peters of Michigan. Good to have you on the show this morning. A lot going on in Michigan.
Yeah,
we'll start there.
A lot going on. Let's talk about the strike first and the showdown between the UAW and General Motors. What can you tell us about it?
Well, first off, certainly I stand in solidarity with the workers who are coming forward and saying that they sacrificed a great deal as General Motors went through a very tough period. They certainly participated in the turnaround because of their sacrifice. Now they've entered a very profitable time for General Motors, and workers are saying now we need to benefit from that. Certainly we need to have fair wages and to negotiate for benefits as a result of the success of General Motors.
I'm just wondering, and of course, I'm sure you, like me, I want General Motors to succeed, because if General Motors succeeds, that means working class Americans succeed. That said, they had a massive windfall over the past several years, had a massive windfall with Donald Trump's tax cut. And yet, despite all of Donald Trump's promises about keeping manufacturing jobs here, the plants keep shutting down. We, of course, had the Macomb County GM plant shut down. Why does GM keep cutting costs when they've been receiving these windfalls over the past several months?
Well, certainly that's a big part of what the negotiation is from the workers in the UAW. And you talk about plants being closed. We had several plants closed in this country. In fact, the new Chevy Blazers being built in Mexico, not in the United States. That's certainly a very sore point for workers, is that if there's excess capacity in the United States, you should be filling that capacity in the United States with new product lines. And that's going to be a central part of this negotiation, to keep those jobs in the United States.
But Senator, didn't Donald Trump say on the campaign trail we weren't going to lose any of these jobs, that none of these manufacturing plants were going to close down, that he was going to keep them out of Mexico? Didn't the president say that? And did he do anything to try to stop that plant from moving to Mexico? Did he do anything to try to keep the Macomb County plant open? Did he do anything specifically to save those Michigan workers' jobs?
No, the answer is no. He did not. It's clear that this administration doesn't have a manufacturing policy whatsoever. There's no strategy to keep jobs in the United States. It's why I proposed a National Institute of Manufacturing, that we can actually focus on the idea that in order to be a great country, you need to make things. And as the manufacturing sector has changed, we actually have an opportunity to be bringing jobs back from overseas. The manufacturing process is highly automated. You need specially trained workers in that area. You need a strategy to make sure that we are closing the skills gap, that we have the right workers to fill these new jobs of the future that are on the manufacturing floor. We're not seeing any of that talk from President Trump. We're not seeing any comprehensive strategy. All we see are an occasional tweet, and that does not substitute for substantive manufacturing policy that we are lacking in this country.
Well, we will certainly be following this story. You're introducing a bill today also pertaining to President Trump and taxpayer dollars being used at Trump properties. Tell us about it.
Well, I am. I'm introducing the Hotel Act, which will prohibit federal per diem from being spent at a hotel property that is owned by a high government official, whether it's a president, a vice president, or cabinet officials. It's part of my role as ranking member on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. We are the principal oversight committee for the United States Senate. And we can't have a situation where folks are going to properties to curry favor with the president. The president shouldn't be lining his pockets with taxpayer money. This is about accountability, and it's about ensuring the taxpayer money is being used the way it should.
So let's clear up one thing that you just alluded to. So in addition to Mexico not paying for the wall, Mexico is now building the Chevy Blazer?
That's correct.
Did the President of the United States attempt to intervene in this? Did he say anything about it? Did he fight for it to be built in Michigan?
I'm not aware of anything that he did. Perhaps a tweet may have gone out, but that doesn't substitute for what is necessary to make sure that manufacturing jobs stay in this country and actually bring manufacturing jobs back to this country. That is possible.
You know, here in New York, you know, everybody talks about the stock market, the Dow is up, the Dow is down, everything. But manufacturing base in this country has been most affected by a weakening economy, has it not?
It has. There's no question about that, and that's why you need to be focused on kind of all the inputs that go into it as well. You know, what I mentioned earlier was that the skills gap is important. We're not training folks the way we need to make sure that they can take advantage of these new technologies in manufacturing. That takes leadership at the national level.
I just want to take advantage of your background, United States Navy, and your positions on the Homeland Security Committee. Were you at all alarmed by yesterday's attack on the Saudi oil enterprises? It was a long-range drone that eluded any anti-missile capacity that Saudi Arabia may or may not have had. That's pretty dangerous stuff.
It is, and I think that's the biggest takeaway. I'm glad you brought that up. We're looking at major changes in technology that are going to change the face of warfare dramatically in the years ahead. Here we have a drone that was likely very low cost and yet was able to evade. You know, that changes the whole equation of legacy weapon systems when an adversary can use a low-cost weapon and create the kind of damage that these weapons created. This is not the last time we're going to see drone attacks being used against very sensitive targets around the world.
Shifting back home, Michigan, of course, is a state that President Trump won in 2016, and his campaign is betting heavily again this time around. Over the summer, before the first Democratic debate in Detroit, you wrote a letter to the candidates, Democratic candidates, suggesting that they really focus on sort of kitchen table issues, that the idea of building some sort of consensus to defeat Donald Trump. Have you seen that? Have they listened, or are you seeing instead a sort of a squabble between the moderate and liberal wings of the party?
Well, I'd certainly like to see more focus on those kitchen table issues. There's no question about it. I think the skills gap that we've already talked about is critical. Certainly when you look at the fact that 65–70% of folks in Michigan will not have a four-year college degree, but still need to have opportunities, still need skills training, that we have to focus on skills training. We put an awful lot of federal resources currently into four-year college degrees, and we underinvest in the kinds of skills training necessary to give everybody a decent shot at being in the middle class and to be able to pursue their version of the American dream, however they define it.
Briefly back to the Middle East, American officials have said there's some discrepancy over whether or not these attacks originated from Yemen or Shiite militias operating inside Iraq. The Houthis, the militia operating in Yemen, said it involved 10 drones. That's a very sophisticated attack. Is there any doubt in your mind that Iran was the progenitor of it?
Well, I think I have to wait to see the briefings of it. You're right. It's a sophisticated attack, but also drone technology is very different. You can be a non-conventional kind of actor to be able to use these kinds of weapons. And that's really the scary part about these new weapon systems. You're going to have folks who don't need an elaborate military infrastructure to launch pretty devastating attacks. And so that's something that we have to adapt. It's something that we have to be focused on, and we better be ready to deal with this situation in the future.
All right, Senator Gary Peters, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning. We'll be watching the strike situation. Coming up, we'll talk to one of the top Democrats in the House.